And call on you.
Good afternoon. Welcome to Connections. I'm your host, Pastor Kevin McGee of the Victory Temple Church of God in Christ. You're listening to us on IntellectualRadio.com. You can also listen to us on iHeartRadio. Connections is a show designed to keep you connected to the Christian community. So sit back and relax as we get connected. And if you wish to become a Connection sponsor, please reach out to me at bishop1915@gmail.com, or you can simply inbox me on Facebook. Nature Sunshine. Have you set your weight loss goals for 2019? Would you like a natural approach to weight loss? Do you want to see and feel changes immediately? Do you take medication for high blood pressure, diabetes, asthma, fibromyalgia, cancer, arthritis, or any other condition in your body? Do you have poor circulation, frequent colds, flu, or chronic fatigue, or perhaps you just want to maintain a healthy body? Give Nature Sunshine a try. They have many products and plans that will assist you in losing weight and maintaining and improving your health the natural way. You can reach them at 708-302-5655. That Rock Movement affirms safety, comfort, dignity, awareness, and empowerment for our Chicagoland street homeless. For any internship needs for schools, community services mandated from the court, or you just want to volunteer assisting the street homeless, call John Netherly at 773-567-5110. And today we have in the studio a longtime friend of mine, all the way from high school, Rhonda Hawkins-Lyke, and we're going to talk about the Asperger syndrome. This month is the month of autism awareness, and Asperger syndrome is in that family of autism. And so we want to talk about this condition. We want to highlight some things. We want to dispel some notions about Asperger. And so we just thank God for her taking time out of her busy schedule. But those of you that's watching on Facebook Live, we have some that have already chimed in. God bless Annette Harris, who hosts the show here on Wednesdays, Mind, Body, and Soul. Kelly Cattonhead, she's watching. Another one of the Whitney Young Dolphins. Phyllis Harrison Lovelace, thank you for watching. Stephanie Williams, thank you for watching. Listen, those of you that's watching on Facebook Live, if you want to call in, if you have any questions about Asperger syndrome, I want to give a shout out to Rhonda. All you Dolphins out there, you can call us at 708-223-8953. That's 708-223-8953. Or you can just simply type in your comments on the comment field. All right, we're going to get started. Thank you, Rhonda, for being here.
Thank you for having me.
It was I guess divine providence, because I was wondering, I said, now I need to talk about autism for this month. And I did not know. I have people that I could talk to, but I've had them on the show like last year or whatever, and I knew this weekend they were busy. And I just happened to see a post on your page talking about I'm an Asperger syndrome mom.
Yes.
And I said, oh, wait a minute now. And I contacted you. You said you were available. And so I'm glad that you were able to take time out of your busy schedule. Because every time I look around, you're busy doing something. All right. So thank you for being here.
You're welcome.
First of all, let's get started because, I know as a mom, you got a lot of things on your plate.
Yes.
We also have a funeral later on today for one of our classmates. So you're busy. And then you live all the way on the south side.
Right.
You came all the way over here to the western suburbs to be with us. Thank you.
I sure did.
But first of all, let's let everybody know who you are. Give us a little bit about your background and just who you are.
Okay. Well, of course, I'm a Whitney Young Dolphin, class of 86.
I'm sorry.
86 in the mix is the best class. We know. But I am, by trade, I'm a lawyer. I'm an administrative law judge. I work for DCFS. I've worked in the child welfare field for about 26 years now. I started out in the Cook County Public Guardian's office, representing abused and neglected children. And then I moved over to DCFS, the big dog, in about 2000. So I've been there ever since. So I've dedicated my field to working with children. So that's what I do. I have two children. One's in college, a freshman, and one's a freshman at Whitney Young.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, Austin, the one we'll talk about today. He's a freshman at Whitney Young. So, and that's pretty much me.
Now, hey Earl, she has a son, and I teased her Because I said, I know his daddy had to be John Legend because the boy looks just like John Legend.
No, they call him. My family calls him Mad Legend because he's always mad about something. And he looks like John Legend, so his nickname is Mad Legend.
The Lord, has, because it only could have been the Lord to keep you through what you had to go through.
Yeah.
And so we just thank God for that. But tell us about, and I'm going a little bit off script.
Okay.
Tell us about when your son was diagnosed with Asperger.
So he was diagnosed when he was about 7, but we knew there were some differences very early. Right around, I would say right after he turned 1. He was a very social baby, which is usually the case with autism. He was a very social baby, very happy baby. Then there was a dramatic shift in his behavior. And so right around 1, we started noticing things like walking on his toes, not making eye contact, and being, very overwhelmed by certain situations. It went on from like 1 to maybe kindergarten where we didn't have a diagnosis, but he was in a lot of trouble a lot of times because he would either be aggressive or he would be not non-responsive, but he wouldn't follow commands. And so we had him diagnosed. He had a neuropsychological, which is what you have to have, a neuropsychological around age 7. And we got the diagnosis back that he had Asperger's, as opposed to PDD or autism, classic autism. He had Asperger syndrome.
Now, for those that are not aware of what Asperger is, because many people, they just look at autism as autism.
Mm-hmm.
They don't know the different components. They don't know the different types. Give us a little bit of information about what Asperger is.
So Asperger's itself used to be its own diagnosis, and it was recently taken out of what we call the DSM, the Diagnostic Standard Manual, where you get the mental health diagnoses. So it was just taken out and put under the autism spectrum because all these behaviors kind of are similar. But Asperger's is developmental disability, but it really affects the social skills. It affects the kid's ability to express emotion, to understand and process emotion, and to communicate with people. So that is where you'll see the largest challenges for Asperger's. It usually does not affect their intellectual capacity or their language like autism can or PDD. So Asperger's kids are usually really very smart. We sometimes call them mini computers. You'll see the kids, they can spit out any fact. They're very knowledgeable about particularly one subject, but they don't know how to communicate that in a way that people will easily converse with them.
And I'm glad you said that they are generally smart.
Mm-hmm.
I was just reading an article this morning. Amy Schumer, the actress, her husband, who is a chef, he's a chef, he's a known chef.
Yeah.
He has Asperger.
Mm-hmm.
And so you can live a functional life. You can be a successful life with Asperger. That's one of the misconceptions that we want to dispel.
Right.
Because people, because they don't know the nuances regarding autism or syndrome such as Asperger, they make general, declarations that they're going to be slow, this, that, and the other. And I'm sure you've heard that, with your child.
Well, when I say he has Asperger's, people are taken aback. They don't say, they're taken aback because when they talk to him, they don't expect him to have that diagnosis. And he's somewhat mild on the spectrum. He has some behaviors that are more severe than others. But let me give you an example, because everyone called me when the show came on, and I was like, okay, I have too much to do to watch it. But The Good Doctor, that show, The Good Doctor has Asperger's. The show is about a doctor who has Asperger's. So there are a lot of people out in this world who are very successful who have Asperger's, that you just never knew it, because they work very hard at overcoming the communication challenges that they have.
Awesome. And so let's talk about your son, because you mentioned that he's a freshman at Whitney Young.
Yes, he is.
So that right there dispels the notion that they're slow, that they're mentally challenged as far as their learning ability. Right. So tell us about Austin, and tell us about, just the migration from the child that you knew when he was really, just
my hip baby.
Yeah. And then he transitioned to where you knew something was wrong.
So, the other misconception is that they don't feel anything, or he's very affectionate. He's a very affectionate kid. He is just as surly as any teenager, attitudinal. But what I did notice was that he would be very clingy to me when we went to certain social situations. Like I would have to, like, not force him, but I would have to kind of, coerce him to want to talk to people, even relatives. He wasn't necessarily going to go to you. And it kind of dawned on me, like, he just didn't want, at first I thought he just didn't want to be bothered with people. And then I started to notice that the lack of eye contact, and then the toes, because that's usually kind of one of the hallmarks parents get when they walk on their tippy toes.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Because I've had students that walked on their toes. I'm like, put your feet on the ground,
Yeah. That is, there is a neurological component to autism. They can't quite find what causes it. There's so many vaccines. There's so many different things holding out there about what causes autism. But one of the signs that you will see in some of the kids is usually that the walk, the tippy toe walk.
Really?
Yeah.
And
repetitive behaviors.
This child had an older brother who walked the same way.
Mm-hmm.
But then I noticed years later, he will walk flat foot on the ground. So
there are some symptoms with autism and Asperger's that will ebb and flow. So some things are not going to always be a part of their life. Some kids outgrow things that have been really prevalent in adolescence. They don't do it when they're adults, or when they were babies. They don't do this when they are teenagers. So my son has some things that he doesn't do anymore that he had when he was younger. But one of the other really big components of the entire spectrum is the repetitive, or the fixation on a particular interest that they will have. Like my son is a gamer times 10. He is fixated on Roblox and Minecraft to the extent
Fortnite.
that I haven't let him get to Fortnite yet. He hasn't asked, and I haven't offered.
Fortnite is awesome.
Right? No, but I'm like, that's one more thing I do not need, but to the exclusion of friends. So what my son will do is he will lock himself in his room and play all day if you let him. And if a friend, because he doesn't have a lot of friends, he has one or two. If a friend comes over, they got to watch him play. He's not going to stop playing and say, my friend is here, let me play with my friend. He's not going to do that. You have to go in and say, hey, stop playing this. You have someone here to see you. And then he will go, okay. But not on his own. He won't do that.
He's like, no, I got to get this high score.
Right.
You're going to have to wait.
It is. Yeah. Yeah. So, but yeah. So, there are things that are very typical about him. He'll be 15 this week. So I have a very typical, messy 15-year-old boy who, you have to often ask if you're taking a shower. But other than that, then there are some things that are really challenging because he has Asperger's.
Now, tell me, how has his transition to Whitney Young been, as far as, socialization? Did they put him in the place, the place downstairs?
Yes,
we called it the Purple House back then.
Purple House.
Is it still the Purple House?
No. Yeah. Okay. So there is. So for kids who have learning, and it's called the diverse learners now. We still have the HIP, the hearing impaired program, that's still there. There's diverse learners, and there are those who are very severe or moderate to severe, and they're in another section. Austin's he's in division 223, but they have the same. The kids in that division have some challenges. They're not all autism. They may have some other challenges. They're intellectually, there's no real difference in the kid. He's in his classes, but what they need is extra support. What you will find with kids with Asperger's or autism that are functioning at an intellectual level where they can go to school is that their executive functioning is just messed up. Their executive functioning is awful, and that's what's happened with him. First semester, he had a 3.2 or 3.3. This term, when I got his grades, I was even scared to go up there because I was just like, oh. Because they took a nosedive because what was starting to be required of him was a higher level of executive functioning, and he's just not that good at that.
Okay.
hmm So, and by executive functioning, I mean the things that keep you organized, the way you process information. So, I think probably the most, when I was struggling to understand his diagnosis, the clinician gave me a very clear picture. She asked me to draw a pie chart, and I did. I drew the circle, and then I divided the circle into the pie slices. And that's how you would do it. Is that how you would do it? Kid with Asperger's or autism would draw the pie slices first, and then try to draw the circle around it. And the slices are not even, especially the lines. So they're trying to connect all those lines. That is how they process information. So they can do the same thing you're doing, but they're going to do it in an entirely different way. And you're going to be like, why are you doing that? But they're going to get the same result.
They're going to do it in the way that makes sense to them.
Makes sense to them.
Not
It doesn't make
sense to you.
Right. And so it took a long time for me to understand he's going to get there, but I got to let him process it the way he processes information and not force him to do it the way I would do it. And that's hard. That's really hard because school is not designed for that kind of difference for the most part.
And this is why we need to keep the awareness on situations such as Asperger, autism in general, because, like I said, schools are not designed. In this 2019,
right,
schools are yet not designed to handle on a large scale children or individuals with these sort of conditions.
Right.
We're still focusing on the mainstream child that, they know how to do this, that, and the logically the way we want them to do it.
Mm-hmm.
But even with dyslexia,
right,
we still don't know how to deal with a child with dyslexia.
Right.
And they want, and it really, when I was working at Providence St. Mel in the admissions department, I remember having so many parents coming to enroll their children saying that my child was at such and such school.
Yeah.
And they diagnosed him with this, and he had to have the IEP,
right,
everything like that. But then also I found out from one of my, actually it was a friend of mine who was a former educator at Whitney Young, and he went on to central office of C. And he told me, he said, listen, this is the real deal. And all you that working at CPS, especially central office, cover your ears. This is the real deal. He says that every school has to have a certain number of IEPs, special education, for federal dollars. And there are certain schools that are told that they don't have enough to go back and find some that they can classify. They might not really be special education students. They might just have a problem learning mathematics.
Yeah.
I had a problem with math in high school. It only took me one time to fail and go to summer school. One time, I never had a problem again because I had a mother that said, "I hate Mr. London. That's the one. That's the class I failed, Mr. London."
I failed Mr. London. Yeah.
My mother said, "This is the last time you'll ever go to summer school." And you know what? It was the last time I ever went to summer school.
I can't say that.
So, but it was because I didn't study because I hated math.
Yeah.
And the subject that I hated was the subject I wasn't going to study as well. And so, but in today's time, they would classify me as special education.
Yeah.
So what happens is that while they're so busy trying to gain a large number of special education individuals for federal dollars, the time and the work that they're devoting to that could be used on developing better ways to deal with those that are truly hampered or truly affected by challenges that the other children are not challenged by.
So I was very, very lucky. My older child, my daughter, is just about 4 years older than Austin. So he followed her in every school except for Whitney Young. She went to Ignatius. But
I'm sorry. I'm sorry about that.
Started. So even in preschool, and then when we went on to Murray Language Academy in Hyde Park, they were already familiar with us as a family. And I was very fortunate that we had some educators who were very invested in Austin. They loved him. And so when we went for IEPs, we made sure that everything was in line. I have a very dear friend who was also a paraprofessional at the school. And so I requested that she be his paraprofessional. At first they kind of were like, but because he has difficulty connecting, but he was connected to her, it worked. So they allowed that. But one of the things is IEPs are just paper, how you implement that IEP is so important, especially for kids with Asperger's and autism, because they're dealing with more than just how they process information. So, for example, one of the things that really upset me in the last couple of weeks, I went to talk to one of his teachers because Austin was failing a class. And I asked the teacher, I said, what are you noticing about him? He says he comes in, and you remember those poles that some of those classrooms had big poles in them? Mm-hmm. He would sit in the desk behind the pole so that he wouldn't be noticed. And then
I did that.
Yeah.
Just so Dr. Hills couldn't call on me.
Right. But his reason is different. He just didn't want to interact with anyone in the room. And then he said, and then he leaves my class and he goes to lunch and he sits in the blue house all by himself. And I was very, very upset because I'm like, he won't talk to anybody. He's like, no, he will not talk to anyone. And it's not that he doesn't want to. Because if you put him in something where he has to socialize, he will, and he enjoys it. He's an amazing writer, an amazing poet, but you got to get him there, that first step is the most difficult step for him. Once he's there, he's good. But that first step.
So he really has to develop a comfort level, and it's just like many children. My son, who, he doesn't suffer from anything. He's a loner,
mm-hmm.
And when it's time to socialize, he socializes. He tells me, Dad, I didn't go to school to make friends. That was his thing. To this day, he's in his getting ready to go into his 4th year of college.
Mm-hmm.
He said, I didn't come to school to make friends.
Wow.
He always had a small group of friends that he would socialize with. Other than that, he didn't deal with you. His thing was, even in preschool, he said, I hate school. I don't like going to school. But he's always been in the top classes. He's always had the top grades and everything, but he hates school.
Yeah.
When he went as a freshman in college, his thing was, I can't wait till I'm done with college. You just got in. I'm tired of school.
Yeah.
And so he's that loner child, but when they find their niche, they're in it.
Right.
And your son is going to find his niche.
Well, as a parent, I kind of step back to see how he would develop these skills on his own, because I've had him in social skills groups. That's one of the things that parents with autism and Asperger's, even PDD, we tend to do is we put them in groups so that they can start socializing, because it's not easy to socialize what we call neurotypical, you and I, neurotypical. It's not easy for them because they're just not sure how to get into a conversation. So we put them in social skills groups to learn how to do this. And really, it would seem so bizarre to us, but literally how to say hello, how to walk up to someone and shake their hand and look them in the eye. Things like that, they have to be taught. They have to be taught that. And so I sat back in the cut to kind of watch. And I realized now that I have to probably put him in because I put him at Whitney Young because there's so many activities there for him, but he didn't want to really get involved in anything. And I hate to say force, but I have to kind of coerce and come on, try the poetry club and just go. And once he's there, he's gone. He's hooked. But until you get him over that hurdle of initially getting there. Mm-mm.
Yeah. And that's especially freshman year, I didn't do much freshman year. Yeah, see, you were different. I remember when the class of 86 came in. You guys were crazy.
Yeah.
But you were just different anyway.
I know.
That's a whole nother story. Shout out to those that's watching on Facebook Live. Renetta Hines. We have Jessica Latham, Doreen Little, Renia Williams, Byron Simpson. Thank you for tuning in, man.
Class of 86?
Yeah. Okay. Class of 86, Byron Simpson, Jeffrey Avery, Pamela Greer,
Pam.
class 85 now.
Okay.
So, and technically, I would have been class 86, but I graduated a year early.
Okay.
So anyway, so we thank God, for you that's watching. If you want to type in a comment for Rhonda, you can. Or if you want to call in and just give her a shout out, you can. 708-223-8953 is the number. You can call in and just give her a shout out. What we're going to do is going to take a quick break. And we're going to give her a chance to rest the vocal cords, and we'll be back talking with Rhonda and the Asperger syndrome.
I can count on you in the midnight hour. Oh, yeah. Lord God, you were there. You've always been there. You're always making a way. Yes, you are. When I was sick, you healed my body. Now I can tell. Only you. Lord, you made me well. Only you, Lord. When I did not have no feeling, when my brother passed, Lord, you were right there. You sent angels, Lord, yes you did. On you can rely on you I can depend on you, Lord. On you I can count on you I can call on you.
Welcome back to Connections. We're here talking with Rhonda Hawkins-Lyke regarding Asperger syndrome, and she has just been fascinating us with the details of her son Austin, who has Asperger, and he is a freshman at Whitney Young, and just delighting us in his world. For those of you that have no clue about what Asperger syndrome is, look it up. You'll find that it's not really an uncommon situation. It's very common in the world of autism. And a lot of people, I was reading this morning, about 37.2 million people are affected by Asperger as of 2015. That was the number. And so it's very common, and you never know who has this. You might be working with someone who has it. You might be going to church with someone who has it. You might have dated somebody. You're wondering now I understand why certain things were the way they were. You would be surprised at you'd be surprised of the person that's sitting right next to you on your job, in your class, or what have you. And so we thank you for tuning in. So now what I want to ask you is that and again, I'm going off script. Is there a certain treatment that they prescribe for children or individuals with Asperger? What you go and you get the diagnosis? First of all, when you got the diagnosis, what went through your mind?
My first thought was for his future. I thought, will he be able to be independent? That was the biggest thing that was scaring me. Was like, not that I had any problem with, if he couldn't be independent, he would be with me for, duration of my life or whatever. That wasn't the issue, but just, would he be able to experience life as an independent young man? So I was fearful for that. And then the next steps were, well, I have this daughter who is just like a academic superstar, and then I have this son who's struggling. Will there be a conflict? Will he feel left out? How will he feel watching his sister excel? Little did we know, he's actually the smartest person in the family. He's that smart. And so that was when I first got the diagnosis. There are there's no treatment. Nothing will cure autism or Asperger's. They'll live with it for the rest of their life. But what we can do is mitigate the symptoms that stop them from being successful. So we started with the social skills groups, so that kids can understand how to deal with their peers and to have empathy and understand emotion. So the biggest thing with Asperger's probably is not understanding how to process those emotions. And so when someone is irritated with my son, he might not get that you're irritated. He's just going to keep doing whatever it was that's irritating you because he don't really know about irritation. So learning how to understand emotions, facial expressions. We actually had to have a book where we would go through and say, this is what a sad face looks like. This is what a happy face looks like. Can you make a happy face? It looked just like his sad face. I mean, it just wasn't, he wasn't going to change his expression very much. And when he did, it was completely forced. And it was just like, okay, be yourself. So if you've seen pictures of him, he's never really smiling. I can make him smile. I can make him laugh. But his resting face is pretty much, I don't want to be bothered.
I told you, every time I look at him, he look like John Legend, so I don't even know if he's smiling or not. I'm trying to figure out, when did Rhonda go off and kick it with John Legend? That's all I need to know.
Now he's better, but when he was a baby, we got stopped everywhere. Like, he looks just like John Legend. I'm like, I know.
That's something you need to tell her?
No. But there's another, there's certain kinds of therapy, ABT or CBT, applied behavioral therapy or cognitive behavioral therapy, depending on what your child needs. My son used ABT, applied behavioral therapy, because he was so mild on the spectrum. He needed to learn how to do things in social situations. He didn't necessarily not process it. Cognitive behavioral therapy is a little deeper because they don't necessarily process some things like emotions and understanding why someone would be angry. He kind of gets that now. So it's more about teaching him how to speak up for himself in class, or, how to talk to a young lady, though he doesn't have any problem with that, apparently.
Oh, really?
No.
Oh, so see, Asperger hasn't stopped that for him.
No, from the time he was in preschool, that little boy had a girlfriend.
Because he looked like John Legend. I'm telling you. Listen, those of you that know Rhonda, you know what I'm talking about. Those of you that don't, you need to find her on Facebook. You need to look at her son, because he looks just like a young John Legend. Yeah, that's why he got the girls after him.
He's had girlfriends all along. So, and like I said, once he starts talking to people, it's very, he's very entertaining. He's funny. He's very funny. But it's just, once he's there. Last summer, and this is a shout out, my best friend is executive director of a place called Clio on 55th in Michigan, and they run a summer program, and my son was part of the program.
55th in Michigan.
Cleo, the Barrett family. Cleo, Cleo Barrett's daughter.
I know them very well.
Cleo, right. Cleo, so she's the executive director of the Cleo Center. And so they had a program last summer. And I was, I had sent them to the same program year after year because they kind of like the same routine. It makes them feel safe and they can do it. But I broke him out of his routine and I put him in something like Young Authors. It was a poetry program. Mm-hmm. Oh my God, did he blow me away? He was writing poetry. He was performing. He wanted to go to Louder Than a Bomb. I mean, it just came out of nowhere.
All right. Then we have a call on the line. Thank you for calling into Connections. Who do we have on the line?
This is Deborah Vance from The Answer Inc. How are you?
Hey, Deborah. Thank you for calling in. I thought about this when I put this show together. Yeah. I said, Deborah Vines will be good. But see, Deborah, you're always busy. You're everywhere.
I was supposed to connect with Deborah.
I just had to put you in my schedule, but I was calling actually to commend Miss Rhonda. We run in a lot of the same circles, and I didn't know that she had a child that was on the spectrum. And thank you so much for sharing your story. I appreciate it so much for us to step up as parents and as advocates. So good work, Rhonda. And I actually inboxed you, so give me a call.
I will. I was supposed to reach out to you like about a month ago because someone wanted us to connect, and I will give you a call.
All right, then. Well, y'all doing a good job.
Thank you.
Thanks for calling in, Deborah.
All righty, bye.
Bye-bye. And Deborah Vines is a very, very big advocate with Autism Awareness, The Answer Inc.
Mm-hmm.
And I had her on the show roughly about, I think, maybe about a little over a year ago. And just a plethora of information that we did not know concerning autism and just talking about her son. And so she's a wealth of knowledge when it comes to autism.
So when I had that meeting with the teacher and I was very upset and I called my other best friend, Celeste. I called her and I was in tears. I was crying and I was like, I got to put him back in therapy, but things are different now because he's 15 and all those other, he can't do the social skills group because that's not really the issue. And she was like, I need you to call Deborah Vines. And so I was supposed to reach out to her, but yeah, that was the first name that came up when I was having that conversation about Austin needing a service, and I couldn't find it because of his age. Because it's easier to find services for young kids, but that adolescent phase, because there's so many other factors that go into it, just adolescence by itself, it's difficult to kind of get them the appropriate services.
Mm-hmm. So tell me something. Like I said, you got the diagnosis. How has Asperger impacted your family as a whole?
Okay. It has had a big impact on our family. So my daughter is like me. She's a very affectionate, very social kid. And it was difficult for her. She used to say to me all the time, my brother doesn't like me. He doesn't love me. And I'm like, that's not true. He shows it in different ways, but you got to remember, and it was hard for her to understand at such a young age that his disability impaired his ability to really show and process emotion. So that used to be the thing where she wanted to be closer to him, but she didn't feel close to him. I'm like, and so I had to train her in understanding how to watch him for when he is close to his sister. And so if he allows you in his space, that tells you that he feels love to you. He allows you in his, so he would allow her in his room. He would always play near her, but not necessarily with her, but near her. And so now that she's older, she gets it. In terms of my family, I've had to put on a back burner some professional opportunities because I couldn't be gone like that. There was a job where they wanted me to travel, and I couldn't be downstate 3 or 4 days a week because my son would probably have a meltdown if I was gone that much. So I realized then I had to stay close to home, and I realized I probably will have to keep him if he goes away to school close to home. Because he needs additional supports. My ex-husband has been really good about, I'm the one who probably understands Asperger's the most, but he tries very, very hard. Like I think they're at Dave and Buster's right now, something like that. Very, very hard to keep him engaged in activities that keep him around other kids. I could always, if I had to work and there needed to be someone to take him on a field trip, we traded off. He would take off and take him on a field trip. So it has had a big impact because he's always needed one of us around to kind of help him navigate some things.
And then we know it had an impact, but what kind of support system did you have? You talked about your best friends, and was there any outpour from extended family or anything like that?
I'm from a small family, so it's just my mom, because my stepfather who raised me, he died before Austin was born, and my grandmother also passed. So it was a small family, and my mom did a lot. But what I can say is that I made a very conscious choice, which is why I tell parents, really, when it's time for your kid to enter kindergarten, do your homework. I made a very conscious choice about the school I wanted my kids to go to. And that was Murray, because Murray was known for being a village. And so there wasn't a day, if I was stuck at work, somebody had Austin. I never had to worry about it. I did not have to worry about it at all, because I had such a huge village. And we still call ourselves the Murray moms, even though some of our kids are gone and grown and fourth year of college or whatever, I had a huge extended support network. My Jack and Jill moms have been awesome in helping me keep him engaged. So yeah, I had a lot of support. I probably say more than a lot of people that I know who have kids with Asperger's. I had a lot of support.
That's awesome.
But also, I want to say this.
Mhm.
I had support because I was vocal. If you do not open your mouth and say your kid needs something, they won't get it. A lot of people feel ashamed, or they don't want their kid to be labeled, and they're private. They don't want to tell that kind of business. Your kid needs a village, especially with Asperger's and autism. And you'd be surprised. Kids, the kids at Murray, when I say that if somebody came for Austin, all those kids came for that kid because they were super protective of Austin. And that is something that I hate for any other parent to miss out on, is that village, including the kids who will be there to help your child.
And I'm glad you said that, because there are a lot of families, a lot of parents who are also in the state of denial.
Yeah.
Not my child.
Yes.
They're just going through a phase.
Uh-huh.
They're just a little slow.
Yeah.
Or either they allow other family members, extended family members, to talk them out of seeking help, because you know how it is.
Yeah.
Our culture, our community, we're private. We don't let people know what goes on behind closed doors.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't believe that, what other people tell us is the right thing. Because we know our child.
Right.
Nobody else in the family had this. So how can they have this? And so what happens is it go years before even getting any type of help. And oftentimes they wait too late.
Yeah.
And when things could have been averted,
mm-hmm.
circumvented, or even avoided.
Yeah.
So you really have to reach out. When you have these children, they're your priority.
Yeah.
Your primary responsibility. Nobody else is going to see about them except you.
Right.
And so you notice some things in your child that is outside of the norm. Or you notice something that, okay, they used to do this, but now they've taken a big shift.
Right.
You need to investigate. You need to put on your Inspector Gadget hat and you need to investigate and see what's going on. It takes nothing to take a couple of hours out of your day and go to the doctor and say, okay, can we have this test run? Can we have this done? Can we have this done? Because your children are an extension of you. And many times I look at it like this. We don't take care of ourselves.
Right.
So many times we don't take care of our children the way this should.
Well, because I work in child welfare and I've seen children on the spectrum with other disabilities, and parents just don't do what they need to do to get the help. I was like, that's not going to be me. But on top of that, I don't have anything to be ashamed of, and neither does he. He's different, but he is just as good as any other kid. And so my thing with him is I never want him to hide who he is. He is Austin, who happens to have Asperger's, so I want him to always be able to walk into a room and know that I'm going to have some challenges trying to fit in, but eventually I will, so, but for parents who are in denial, honestly, it will come back to bite you so badly, being in denial about what your kid needs. Early intervention is key. It's key.
And we have to understand that, yes, there's some natural hesitancy when you receive diagnosis. We start wondering how will they be able to live a normal life? Will they be able to be self-sufficient? But many successful people, many people have gone on to become millionaires,
Mm-hmm.
Music composers, what have you, and you wouldn't even know that they have these conditions.
Right.
So never sleep on your child,
right,
because your child they should mean the world to you. And because we grew up in the day, we didn't have labels for kids.
Right.
We didn't have autism, we didn't have all this. We call them retarded.
Yeah. Yeah.
And now I can't stand to hear that word.
Yeah.
I can't
We
stand
don't
to
use
hear it.
Yeah.
Because that is a word that should not be used,
Right.
unless it's talking about the food process, the retardation of the food process.
Right.
But other than that, because when you put everything in one umbrella when you say retarded.
Right.
And no, this is the person that happens to have autism.
Right. And so I think one of the stories I'll tell for parents, we knew Austin had Asperger's about 7 or 8 years old. And we had a really bad incident with him at around age 10. And so he had a really bad incident at school, and we decided to tell him. He didn't know his diagnosis. We knew, and we were working with services, but we never sat him down and said, hey, you have this. And so we were at a party, and some kid made a crack about autism. And said that it was a negative crack, and Austin just had a meltdown. He had a meltdown, and at the party, I had to pull him to the side and finally tell him, And he said to me, he said, "I knew I was different. I knew I was different." But after I told him, 180 in his behavior, because then he could own whatever was going on with him, and he could do the research himself because he researches everything, and he could advocate for himself, and he could explain why I feel this way. But if you are in denial, when your kid is not understanding why do I feel like this, and there's nothing for them to grasp why, you're playing with fire.
And they don't see that the other children are acting this way, and they say, okay, I'm different, but nobody can tell me why I'm different.
Right.
So in your opinion, at what age, or is there a specific age where a parent should sit down and tell their children, okay, look, this is the deal, and this is how we're going to work through this?
I mean, I don't know if there's a magic age. It depends on how mature your child is to take certain things. Because even with Asperger's, there's maturity levels. There's all, it's only a part of their personality, but so many other factors come into it. But I would say middle school is where you're really going to start seeing some social challenges that they're going to have to face. They're shifting from the little kid to the big kid. And that is a time that you normally start having the conversations about your body, about a little bit about sex, about the right kind of friends, and you should probably also then incorporate the conversation about, and you have autism, or you have PDD or Asperger's, and this is what we're going to do to help you, and this is what you're going to do to help yourself. So I would say middle school is a good time, but your kid, and when some kids can't handle it in middle school.
And then should you reinforce and continue to motivate them in that we're going to see it through. You're going to go to college. You're going to do this, that, and the other, to give them that hope, that brass ring to reach for. Absolutely. So
I think one of the funniest moments with my son was when we were on a college tour for my daughter. I think we were in Minnesota, and the guy asked, he said, "Who's been on college tours?" And my son raised his hand, and the guy was like, "How old are you?" He's like, 12 or something like that. And he's like, "How many college tours you been on?" He's like, "All of them. My mom always makes me go." And I'm like, "Well, I make you go because, one, I don't want to do it again. You saw that school already. But two, because I want you to know this is you. I want you to visualize. This is what I see for you. Now, I might not send him all the way to California, but he's going to go to college. If he really wants to, he does. I wouldn't force him, because kids with Asperger's, it's hard to force them to do anything. But that's what he wants for himself. So we're going to make it happen."
Has he said any? I know, he's a freshman, so he really might not know what he wants to do, but has he set any goals for himself as far as, what do I want to be when I grow up?
Oh my God. It was a rapper. It was a musician. He does not play music.
Interesting.
He was a musician. It was a writer. It was a filmmaker. He's creative. So when he starts exploring any creative outlet, then that becomes his focus of. So like last year, it was, up to 2 a.m. composing music on the little keyboard that we have in the house. He makes movies. So he's going to do something creative. I don't know what it is, but he'll find it.
So the child that looks like John Legend is trying to play keyboard.
Okay.
Yeah,
I know. So yeah, but he's definitely a creative kid. So it's going to be something in the creative field for him.
Okay, so no chance he's going to go into law.
No,
Okay,
probably not.
all right.
No.
Or
Or medicine.
Now you mentioned that he's into poetry.
Mm-hmm.
So has he had his poetry read out loud to anybody? Has he had it on display? And how did it go?
So last summer at Clio, they did poetry. They did their slam, the end of the year slam, and or end of the camp slam, and he had a piece that he wrote, and performed, and it was an interesting piece because we hadn't really talked about the subject matter, and he performed it, and the kids went wild. And my mom and I were there, and we were sitting there like, did you know he knew about this? I didn't know he knew about this, but he just started. I mean, he was spitting it, and we were just like sitting back like, he always amazes me because it's not that I underestimate him. It's just that I don't expect where he's coming from. He just comes out of left field with stuff, and he's good at it. So he had it read out loud, and the kids all did there, and they were Austin, and he was so proud of himself. And usually he would get off the stage if he was doing something and come over and sit with us, and he got off stage and went with his friends. And that was a big deal to me.
Were there any girls in the mix?
Oh, of course.
Yes,
when I dropped him off in the morning, they would be like, "Hi, Austin's mommy," and he'd get out the car, smile, and I'm like, "Oh,
that makes a smile, huh?" So now, how was his stage presence? Because this is a child. You said he's not. He's to himself.
Mm-hmm.
But when he got on the stage to do the poetry,
yeah, he is. He's tall. He's a tall kid, and he's a good-looking kid. He's a tall, good-looking kid.
Oh, he didn't get that tallness from you then.
You've been talking to Byron Simpson, the short jokes. He got up on the stage, and as soon as he started talking, I saw the shift. When he first went up there, it was the hesitancy, but I saw the shift. He has an amazing stage presence. He believes in what he was saying. And that's one of the things. So this is a little bit off topic, but it explains Asperger's. One of his teachers one time called me and said she thought he cheated on a test. I said, maybe. Let me see. Let me come up there, And so I came up there, and he was super red and very angry. And she's like, but his answers are very similar to the kid next to him. And they had two different tests, and he had the same exact answers. I was like, that's possible. I said, but I want you to understand about Asperger's is when they believe in something, they're going to fight you to the death about it. You're not going to move them off their square. When they believe in something, they will let you know. And that is how he is. When he believes in what it is, he's going to project, he's going to say it, and he will challenge you on it. So he won't back down. He will not back down on that. So I have to usually back. I'd be like, okay, let it go, Mom, because he won't back down. And so that's how he was with his poetry. He got up there and he started talking about the subjects that he felt very passionate about, and he just let everybody have it in the audience. And that's why we sat back like, I didn't know this was in him. So yeah.
So he doesn't run the poetry by you before he...
No.
Okay.
No, and I don't ask him to. If he wants to, he can. Generally, he does not. He doesn't like to run anything by me. including homework. But yeah. So, but yeah, his poetry is all in his computer, and it's his. It belongs to him.
So now, my last question is this: what do you hope? What do you hope regarding the awareness of Asperger? What do you hope? What do you hope to highlight about Asperger going forward? That the society will embrace.
That the misconception. The biggest one is because my son has a kind of, it's not a blank stare. It's more like a I don't want to be bothered, but it's not true. The biggest misconception that these kids don't feel anything. They don't care about anything. It's the exact opposite. They feel everything, and it's intensified, and it kind of paralyzes them sometimes because they're so overwhelmed with the amount of emotion, fear or anxiety or whatever it is. And so what I would like people to know is if you just reach out, if you take the first step and talk to a kid with Asperger's or a person with Asperger's, you take so much pressure off of them of trying to figure out how to connect with you. If you make the first, it can be a small step. You make the first step, they'll meet you. They'll meet you. They're not going to ignore you, but they're just scared to probably make that first step. They don't know how. Even with training, it just becomes so they become so defensive because they are scared they're going to fail at doing it. So I would tell people to know that they feel everything. Just reach out. You say hi, like the kids say, hi, Austin. He's hi back and he's a little smile or whatever. So it's important to try to connect with them.
Okay. Awesome. Just shout out to those that are watching on Facebook Live. Sylvester Johnson and Angelique Stewart, Jesse Williams. Stephanie Williams said, this is very informative. I will stop using the term retarded, even if I'm joking. Sometimes we just need someone to remind us how offensive some terms are. And thank you, Stephanie, for that. We just thank you for being here on the show.
Thank you for having me.
And we're going to bring you back because we want to update on Austin and his journey at Whitney Young and his musical journey.
Okay.
and all the young ladies that are after him and your new daughter-in-law and all of that good stuff.
Oh, yeah.
So want to update on him as well as, just his journey with Asperger and how the success factor is going to kick in. So we're going to be keeping tabs on you and bringing you back.
Absolutely.
Maybe that's the show we can have Deborah Vines on as well.
Yay, Deborah.
But we thank God for all of you that are listening. Tune in to Connections every Saturday from 12 noon to 1 p.m. And if you're ever in the Broadview, Illinois area, you can stop by Victory Temple every Sunday morning, 8 a.m. to 9:30 a.m. We're located at 2000 West Roosevelt Road inside of the Community Presbyterian Church building. Tomorrow is Resurrection Sunday, Easter Sunday, not Peter Cottontail Sunday, but Easter Sunday morning, where we celebrate the resurrection of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. So if you don't have a place to go, stop by Victory Temple. We're not doing a sunrise service. 8 o'clock is early enough. All right. So no 6 o'clock a.m. Come by us 8 o'clock. And we will do you good. Tune in to Connections again every Saturday from 12 noon to 1 p.m. And we thank God for your listening in and on IntellectualRadio.com. God bless you. God keep you. Bye-bye, y'all.
I've been on this journey a mighty long time. I felt like giving up, thought I would lose my mind.